Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So, the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season. And I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows. So no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure you get that chance to win that gift certificate. And now let's get back to what we all came here for, and that's another badass female first responder. Hey guys, we are back today with another fantastic episode. And today I am joined by two badass females from the Lethbridge Police Service. I'm joined by Constable Allie Enkirch, who's been a constable with them for 7 years, coming up in July, and Constable Molly Murray, who's been with them for 5 years and is currently a member of the High Risk Offender Unit. Fun fact about Molly is she also represented Lethbridge Police at the World Police Fire Games that were recently held in Winnipeg in the summertime in the sport of CrossFit. So we know that she is a glutton for punishment and likes to do double unders and skipping and throwing heavy things at the wall. So welcome, ladies. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having us. We're very excited.
Thank you.
I wish we were like with you with like the headphones on, eating snacks in person. We'll have to do that next time.
Yeah.
Yes. The beauty of being able to do this like electronically and like virtually is I can talk to people from all across the world, but it does kind of get a little sad because I'm just like, I don't actually get to meet a lot of these wicked women that I interview. And then, so then I'm like, I have like a road trip planned across the province in the summertime that I just want to like stop by all the people that I've interviewed and be like, hey, I'm going to meet you in person now.
Well, definitely. I was like, let's go to Edmonton and do like podcasts for the day and just like drive back.
Yes. I know. Road trips. Okay, well, we'll do it. We can always do another episode. I'm down with that. It's there's always something new.
Many things to talk about.
Exactly. Yes, totally. Okay, well, let's jump right into it because I want to hear you guys' stories. I'm super pumped, and when we have two guests, it always runs a little bit longer. So I'm gonna jump right into it. I want to know from you beautiful women, like, how did you get into policing? Why did you specifically choose Lethbridge Police Service, and led you kind of down this path into a law enforcement career? So I'm going to start with Allie. How did you get into this?
Yeah, a little bit about my backstory. So I actually grew up in Airdrie, born and raised, went to school, and I competed pretty competitively in horseback riding. And in 2012, right after I graduated high school, I was on the Canadian World Cup team for the horseback riding that I do. And the competition was actually held in South Africa. So I went to South Africa, fell in love with it there, did the competition, and then came home. And instead of going right into school, I was like, I have to go back. So I went back for about 7 months and lived on a farm, trained, showed, bred horses, and had an absolute blast. And while I was there, the trainer that I was living with was actually a retired South African police officer. So he was just telling me like crazy stories. And so policing was already in the back of my mind. And then while I was FaceTiming my mom one day, she was like, well, Lethbridge College has a really good CJ program by the sounds of it. And at the time, I didn't have the grades to get into Mount Royal. So I ended up applying to Lethbridge College while I was there and got accepted. So when I got back from South Africa, I came to Lethbridge, moved out by myself for the first time, did the 2-year CJ diploma, loved it. I've never enjoyed school and I absolutely loved it. And I ended up actually doing my practicum with Lethbridge Police. So kind of got a feel for Lethbridge Police, had a blast on the practicum. City-wise, very similar to Airdrie, so I really liked that. Calgary was initially kind of on my radar just because Calgary was home, but always really liked living in the smaller city. Calgary's phenomenal, but it's just different style of policing, and I really like the smaller city vibe, and just the fact that our agency has such small numbers, everybody. And really at the end of the day, we're a big family, which is awesome. So ended up graduating and was lucky enough that I applied September the year I graduated, and I started recruit training the following March. It was a very quick process for me. And then I did 6 years, or I guess 5.5 years on the street, and ended up applying for recruiting. And now I am one of the 2 full-time recruiting officers for Lethbridge Police. I've been up here for a year and loving it. It's a blast. Day shift is nice. Getting a little bit of a break from the night shifts is always nice once you hit that kind of 6 year mark. And then ended up meeting my now husband, who's also a member. So officially stuck here.
That's super cool. Okay, so I want to know about the style of riding that you were doing. So like the Canadian World Cup in horseback riding. So is it like dressage or were you like barrel racing?
No, it's called saddle seat. It's not very popular here. We have a very small number of riders and horses in Alberta. I'd say there's like maybe 200. So it's smaller here. But we ride American saddlebreds. So it's an English style of riding. Like YouTube it or Google it, all the guys at work that I've shown it to, they're fancy show horses. They have a little bit of a heavier shoe, so they pick up their feet higher. They have a naturally higher headset. Some of them are naturally gated.
Are they the ones that like prance?
Yeah.
Like that. Doot, doot. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
okay.
very fancy. Yeah. So okay. I've been riding since I was 4 and rode all the way up until I was in college. And then I had my horse that I actually retired out here in Lethbridge with me. And yeah, the year that I tried out, South Africa and the US are really big countries for that kind of riding. It's actually quite crazy how big like that world is, especially in Kentucky. So when I got on the team, I was lucky enough to be on the year that it was held in South Africa. So I got to go there, which was an amazing experience.
Well, and I think it's really cool that you like went and then you were like, yeah, I need to go back. And so like, you know, like you were like, I'm coming back. So I'm just gonna live on this farm in the middle of South Africa and then I love how you also said like, so then when I went to Lethbridge College, that's the first time I lived on my own. I was like, I'm pretty sure you lived on your own in South Africa. Super cool.
My mom's like, so where are you like staying? And I'm like, I don't know, like in the middle of a farm in South Africa. It'll be fine. Everything's fine.
It's totally true. How old were you when you went?
I just graduated high school, so I would have been 18, 19.
Yeah,
so
that was
when I went for the World Cup, and then when I went again on my own, I would have been 20 or 21-ish, and then I retired at 23. So
yeah, that's very similar to mine. I was living in Wales at 19, turned 20 there. And yeah, I like think about it now because I have a 14-year-old, she's turning 15 in April. And I think to myself, like, would I just let her just go across the world? Yeah. Just like, where are you gonna live? I don't know, in the middle of a farm in South Africa. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, Mom. It'll be fine. Totally. Okay. And then Molly, tell me your story. How did you get into this? Like, drew you to Lethbridge Police?
Yeah, so I am not someone who like was a little kid dreaming of being a police officer. I like joke that I accidentally became one. Obviously, there was more to it than that, but so yeah, I'm born and raised in Edmonton originally. So I lived there and I went to university there. So I went to the U of A and did a criminology degree. And then I graduated in 2016.
Oh, you're so smart. You got into the uni.
Yeah.
Not me.
I'm a bit of a nerd. Much like Allie, though, I finished school and my original plan was to write my LSAT and go back to law school, but I was so burnt out from doing my undergrad. So I was like, I'm going to move to a farm in the middle of nowhere, except instead of South Africa, I moved to New Zealand.
Thank you.
So my fiance is from there. So we were together at that time. I moved there. I was working on his family's farm. I'm a horrendous sheep farmer, I learned. If there was an orphan lamb, it was coming in the house. The work dogs were always at our house. They're not at all supposed to be there. And I would just say, well, I don't know how they got here, but they're here now, so they might as well stay. So anyway, that wasn't for me. I moved back to Canada. I didn't get fired, although they probably should have fired me. I came back and I started applying for jobs kind of all over the place. And I ended up getting a job as a probation officer here in Lethbridge. So I was doing that. It was on a term contract, so I only had an 18-month kind of role there. But I realized I really, really liked Lethbridge, just the size of it. It's super close to like Fernie, Waterton for hiking, skiing. Like those are kind of some of my hobbies. And then I went out to a work function, and one of my coworkers was married to the recruiting officer for LPS at that time. And so we were at this barbecue, and he's kind of like, what are you going to do like after your contract is out? And at that time I realized that working in an office and doing the same thing every day was gonna like ruin my life. So I was like, well, I'd never like fully considered policing. And he's like, well, just come and write the AppCat and just see what happens. So essentially he tricked me, and I came and wrote it and I passed. So then it was just kind of one of those things where one step after another, I was getting more and more excited. And yeah, so 2019, I started with the cadet class training. And that was a crazy roller coaster, but amazing experience. We were the biggest cadet class in LPS history. There was, I think, 33 of us at the start because we had agencies plus CPOs. So it was kind of like the Hunger Games, to be honest, but it worked out for me because here I am 5 years later. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
That's awesome. You know what I really love? I love that both of you kind of like just found this calling through kind of like life experience and travel. I think that's another huge thing, like for our listeners. If you are a young female that is maybe in university right now or in post-secondary or coming out of high school, travel, do it. Take the opportunity, see a bit of the world, gain a little bit of life experience, figure out what it's like to live on your own and have those moments of like, what the fuck did I just do? I just moved across the goddamn world by myself. Like, what is wrong with me? Right? Like, and figure out that maybe sheep farming is not for you. Maybe, that's just not your calling. That's fine. That's fine.
As much as I thought this is not for me and what am I doing, the irony is that when I was in my panel interview, I used an example from being on the farm because I was just thrown into so many situations and it was like sink or swim. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I won't admit it to my partner because how bad I was, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? I really learned something from the farm.
Well, it is true. Like, I mean, it's just a totally different style of life. Growing up in Edmonton and then just living on a sheep farm, like they're total different universes. Yeah. So that's and I really like, again, so you came from my background. That's exactly what I did. I went to the U of A. I did my criminology degree through there. I was exactly going to do the same thing, finish and write an LSAT and go into law school. And I was like, I'm fucking done. I need a break. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do school anymore. And I'm broke because I went and lived in Wales and partied and like traveled for a year. So I really need to make some money. I should probably do that. Right. So yeah, exact same journey. Where did you get to do your practicums at when you did your criminology degree?
So my first one, I was with the Elizabeth Fry Society. So they used to have an office downtown that was just this tiny little house in the middle of a bunch of skyscrapers, which was so random. So I was just helping with programming there. And then I was also doing prison liaison stuff with them. So I was doing workshops at all the institutions around Edmonton, which like me at that time, I think it's so funny me teaching a workshop about like stress and managing your boundaries. I'm like 19, like I know what I'm talking about, but I sold it pretty well. And then after that, I did a placement with probation, which is kind of how I found myself in that role.
Yeah. That is, again, it's a great thing that I think, and I'm glad to hear Lethbridge College has it too, that practicums are part of the curriculum because, again, it's like you can think that this is what you want to do, right? And you may get into school and be like, oh my God, I love this. This is exactly what I want to do. That's how I found like leaving high school where I didn't hate school, but I didn't like, I was like, I hated math, I hated science, right? And then to get into university and be like, psychology, like sociology, criminology, like this is what I want. I was like, I would never skip a class because I'm so interested in this stuff. I loved it. But then like to also then get a chance to go and like see what it's really like once you leave school. I think that's a huge part of it because if it's just all school based, you get that book learning, but you don't really know what it's actually like, with E-Fry to go into a jail and be talking to these women and be like, yes, I am imparting wisdom to you, even though you have so much more life wisdom than I do in my 19 years. The things that you have seen and done are like, I pale in comparison, right? It's like, it's true. Cause I volunteered with E-Fry too, to get into criminology because back when I did it. So I graduated in 2001, 2002, and you had to have volunteer hours even to be able to apply into criminology. And so that's what I did was E-Fry. And same thing. Like I remember going to the women's prison, EIFW on the north side, and like talking to these like pretty hard criminals, as I found out later when I started working at the remand. And I was like, oh, I saw her at EIFW. And they're like, she's one of like the toughest female cons ever. And I was like, wicked. And I was standing there doing like, yeah, setting boundaries, guys. So we're going to make sure that we're using kind words when we're talking to each other. Like,
Yeah.
Fuck. But it was good. It was good experience as you go out there and you're like, okay, like this is really what I'm signing up for. Like if I'm going to work in policing or I'm going to work in corrections, like these are the people I'm going to be dealing with. So let's buckle up and get ready and be prepared for it. So yeah, that's fantastic. So I want you guys to kind of walk me through. It sounds like you guys were fairly similar in your timings for like moving through the recruitment phase, but because you are both in recruiting, well, sorry, Allie, you're in recruiting, Molly, you're with a high risk offender unit. How does that work? Like it sounds like it's very similar to Edmonton Police. You're writing the ABCAT, then you're going through your behavioral interviews, you're running the APREP, you're like that type of things. How long does it usually take? What's the breakdown of the steps of that? And as you move through it, where were some places that you found challenging, or where was it that you were like, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be?
Yeah. Oh God, it feels like so long ago that I went through my process. I went through mine so fast when I was an applicant because I applied on the deadline. I actually was.
Don't do that.
No, please don't. I was humming and hawing. I had my visa all ready to go. I was actually going to go back to South Africa for a year and not thinking that I was going to get hired when I did. So I applied. I literally remember driving from Airdrie to Lethbridge and handing in my application back when we hand bombed everything at the front counter on September 30th, which was the deadline, and being like, I'll go through the motions of it, hopefully make it to like an interview, see what it's like. And then when I get back from South Africa, I'll reapply probably with Calgary and kind of like go from there. So I went through the process, really quick. I was lucky enough to pass my APCAT and on the first try, which was back when we had the APCAT and the ACT. We don't have the ACT anymore for the Alberta agencies, which is nice because that test is hard. We got rid of it as a temporary exemption, but I don't think it will end up coming back. I personally struggled with that APREP. I'm not a runner. I like to pick up heavy things and put them back down. So I had to adjust my fitness routine and eventually ended up passing it. And then was also lucky enough to get through all my interviews, and like Molly brought a lot of South Africa and travel examples in that panel interview. And then because I live such a boring life, my background and polygraph were a breeze. So, for me, I remember it being obviously a little stressful and exciting at the same time, but quick. But from a recruiting officer standpoint, every applicant is so different. We have some that are local where we can literally get them booked in for things like the following week and just keep going. And that's kind of one of the benefits of being a smaller agency compared to like Edmonton and Calgary, is we're not necessarily getting the applicant numbers that they are. So we're able to just kind of move through it a little bit quicker, especially now that there's two of us. This was a one-man unit for a while, and now there's two of us up here, and Rachel, who's our admin assistant. We're a well-oiled machine now, but like even today, we had two applicants today, and we were like, does it sound desperate if we're like, hey, want to come in tomorrow? Because we're ready for it. So yeah, but so our local guys, it's nice because we can be like, hey, we've got an APREP next week. If you can get that medical form signed, like we'll sign you up kind of thing. Mm-hmm. With our out of town applicants, really just depends on their availability. We kind of have it down to a science now, where if you are an out of towner, we can get you in. If you can make like 2 trips, maybe 3, we can get you through everything, because a lot of stuff, like we can do one-on-ones over Teams. We can even do panel interviews over Teams. We don't love to do that, but if we have to, we will. And depending on where you are with the amount of traveling that Edmonton and Calgary are doing, like we were just in Surrey and we hosted an APCAT exam. So there's opportunities for people in other provinces to even get started on the process before they even apply, which is nice. But all in all, like I've seen some applicants get through the entire process in 2 or 3 months. There's like 6 to 8 months, sometimes even a year. Because the other two is that with that APCAT and that APREP is if you aren't successful, there's a little bit of a timeline that you have to wait afterwards. So if we have somebody who struggles with the APCAT, for example, they have to wait a month till they can write again. If they aren't successful the second time, they have to wait 3 months to write again. So really, every applicant is totally different in regards to that.
And how often are you guys running APREP testing down there?
Once a month, I would say.
Okay.
It is available, like Calgary and Edmonton, I think run them like a week. And so if we do have applicants that are in Calgary or Edmonton, we're like, hey, save your gas, go run it with Calgary, or same with like the AppCat, and then just send us your results kind of thing. But yeah, we have to coordinate with the Lethbridge College. They have all of our equipment, and we have to have the people who are certified to run it actually run it. So we kind of have to obviously coordinate schedules with them and stuff like that, but at least once a month, sometimes two, depending on the timelines.
And do you guys have continuous like intake, or are you like posting, setting up a class, and then posting, setting up another class?
So since myself and Constable Darby got up here, we are going to be doing 2 classes every year for the next foreseeable future, probably 3 to 5 years. So we're going to be doing class every January and every July. And instead of like making a cutoff date for that class, we have just made ourselves our own like internal cutoff dates for certain stages for each class. So like, for example, we have a class starting July 15th. And the deadline to have your application submitted, your PDF, all the supporting documents that come with that, vision hearing, a successful APREP, and a successful AppCat, all that has to be done by March 1st, just to give us enough time to get you through interviews, psych, poly, and then our background checks that our intel unit does. They need at least a month to do that. And then we're presenting to the chief and offering employment. So we've just made internal cutoff dates in regards to classes that way, but the application itself, like the process it's just going to stay open. And then just depending on when you apply and how you do in your application process will determine what class you'll be eligible for.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one big thing. Like I'm doing my best up here in Edmonton to try and put it out there to people. Like, this is not something, like, even though the application process can be as quick as 2 to 3 months, like if you're not fit enough, like you're not going to get in. Like we're getting here and it drives me bananas is like, I have people that like roll up and they're like, never done this fitness test before. They're not really working out. They're definitely not working out at the level they need to be anywhere freaking close. And then they're like, but oh my God, like this is the last thing I need. I'm like, well, why the fuck did you leave it to the last thing you need? Like, why didn't you do it first? Hello? Like, do you not realize that there's a physical fitness component to this job, right? But what I'm seeing is applicants are seeing like, they just see the job. They don't see all the things that lead up to it. So March 1, so basically in 2 weeks, you have to have your successful APREP, your successful AppCat, all of your like stuff done, but you're not even going to training until July. So like people out there, start prepping now for the January class so you can get your fitness where you need to be. You can get your shit together and be able to apply, because it is like, I'm really glad you kind of broke those timelines down, because it's frustrating for me too. And then they expect like the magic sauce for me just to like magically make them fit enough to pass this. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I don't care how many workshops you come to run the beep test. If you can't run it, I can't magically make you get a 7. Like, you have to be able to run the 7 to pass. Like, I can't do it for you. So that's really good. Molly, what about you when you were going through training? So you finished 2019, you were in training, application process and stuff like, was it similar to what it is now? Was there a different stage? Was there somewhere where you struggled as you were moving through it?
Yeah. So the only difference being, I guess, that I did write that ACT, the Alberta Communication Test, that's no longer in effect, at least as of right now. I wouldn't say there was any one stage that I found to be a super big barrier for me. Like, I like working out. I like training hard. So when I ran the APREP, I was prepared. I set up a beep test in my backyard, just measured it out and ran it to make sure I could hit level 7. And I think Allie and I share that frustration. Like, we're doing boot camps right now for possible like future applicants, and so many of them show up and they have no concept of the beep test, and I'm like, that's unacceptable, because this is something you can prepare for. This is something you have knowledge of. This isn't a surprise. So it's very easy to set up. You need no equipment. I'm like, you don't even need pylons. Just put something out to mark the distance. Yeah, the process, I mean, it's definitely stressful because you pass one step and you kind of switch gears for the next. But I mean, even the panel, it's same thing, preparation. I felt so bad for my roommate at the time because I was going through my star format answers with her probably nightly. She's like, I'm sick of hearing these. I could do this interview.
I'll do the interview.
Yeah. So again, I don't know. I'm like a stickler for prepare for what you know, and there's no excuse for that.
This one time in New Zealand,
yeah.
I'm like, no, that's you went on a rant that I express within myself every day. The fitness test should be the easiest part of the application process. And this is coming from somebody who struggled with it. I didn't train properly. And I got myself in shape to really prepare myself for recruit training, because we tell people all the time, whether it's a female boot camp or even our A-preps and our A-prep orientations, it's like that A-prep is the minimum requirement just to continue through the application process. It's not even the minimum requirement fitness-wise for anything else. It's literally just the minimum standard that the government has put in place for you to continue through the application process. And if you can barely pass that A-prep test, you are really going to struggle in recruit training. We're really trying to grind that into people, because we want people to succeed, and we want people who are physically and mentally fit coming into this job, and not just thinking, oh, I played hockey in high school, I'll be fine. And it's like, no, no.
Preach. I play hockey right now, and I'm like, okay, like how many times a week do you play? Oh, like I play beer league, and I'm like, okay, so that's not hockey. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. That is like skating around for an hour once a week. That's all you do? Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you what level you're not at for fitness. Like, or like I get all the time too. Well, I walk a lot at work. I'm like, that doesn't count. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like 30,000 steps. I was like, I don't give a, you could do 80,000 steps. That is not going to prepare you for this fitness test that we are about to run. You will find out. But like, why would you leave that preparation until the last minute, until like you're sitting on the side of the gym waiting to run your test, and you're realizing then that you're not fit enough? Like, that's just not me as a human being. Like when I was going through the process for RCMP, for corrections, like I was like, same thing, set up the course, ran, like running every day. I hate running. I hate running. It's the worst. I'm with you. Lift up heavy things, put down heavy things, you know, like do my sports. Like I'm down with that, but I don't want to do just running just for the sake of running. But you want the job, you're going to run.
Like any other part of the process that you like people prepare for the interviews, people like mentally prepare, have an idea of what the polygraph is going to be like, all that kind of stuff. You can prepare for the written exam, but yeah, it's there. You got to prepare for that fitness test. And really you're getting into a career where your fitness is so huge, and you might only have to be super fit and in a position where you might have to fight somebody 10% of our careers, but like, God forbid you're not in shape to handle yourself. And that's why you have to be physically fit for this job. And at the end of the day, it's your safety and it's your mental health is a huge thing. It took me a really long time to realize how connected my fitness journey was with my mental health in this job, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the training that you guys go through in order to, once you're through the process, you're successful, you get that call, which is like literally the best day of your life when you get that call and you can't believe that you made it through and you're like, I've survived. What does training look like for you guys?
I think training's fairly similar to what we went through, aside from your class, Molly, just being extremely large. I had 10 people in my class, which was the perfect size and really kind of like the size of classes that we've been doing recently anyway, which is nice. Like we all fit on the range, we all fit in the mat room, we all fit in the classroom. Like it's just a nice number to have. But yeah, Lethbridge has recently changed it. So when Molly and I got hired, we started as cadets. We weren't sworn in, which our current chief has changed. So all of our recruits, literally day one of recruit training, you're coming in a suit and tie and you're getting sworn in as a police officer. You're contributing to your pension. You are getting compensated as a police officer, benefits, all of that from day one, which is phenomenal. So that's literally day one cadet swearing in. And then it's everything with us, with Lethbridge is in-house. We do all of our training at our police station. We do coordinate a lot with the college. We do a lot of our scenarios there. They have like a condo mock kind of set up with cameras and stuff. So we're able to do scenarios in there. And we actually bring in like actors and actresses and stuff, which is really fun. And then all of our shooting is here. We have our own range in the river bottom. So we do all of our shooting here. All of our controlled tactics. We have a mat room in the basement. We have a really nice gym in our basement as well that we use. So our training unit really does everything in-house. So it's usually classroom, kind of like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is how it was for me. And then Tuesday, Thursdays was like PT in the morning that the college also does with you. So you're going on those long runs, you're doing training, weight training, you get tested 3 times throughout the recruit training as well. There's some fitness standards again that you have to meet even once you're in recruit training that people don't realize. And then all of our like use of force, control tactics, we're learning ground fighting, vehicle extractions, handcuffing, and then obviously we start getting into our like our weapons that we use. So pepper spray, taser, we start using our guns, baton, all of that kind of stuff, all in house. So it's really nice because it's like Monday to Friday, mostly like kind of an 8 to 4 thing. So you're at home every night with your family. We're not sending you off somewhere and not paying you. Before we were doing like we would pay you like a stipend. So it's come a long way that way, which is really nice. So yeah, everything's in house Monday to Friday, and then our kind of subject matter experts in the building will actually teach a lot of the courses, so a lot of the law, and then in collaboration with the college as well, we have some instructors there that obviously teach some stuff too.
That's awesome. And so, like, what do you do if, like, you're an out-of-town applicant? Like, you're expecting them to be, like, moved into Lethbridge, essentially settled as best they can, or be completing that process while they're doing the training, so they're living there. There's no, like, a comms, like, provided for them?
No, so we, even just with this last class, we had a couple out-of-town applicants. We try to get them through the process a little bit quicker so that we can give them at least, I try to give them a couple months. Again, it totally depends on when they apply and how they do in the process. But if I can give somebody 2 or 3 months with an offer of employment for them to come here, find a house, move, find a school for their kids, like that's all very stressful and it's a lot of work. So we do our best to accommodate that and really try to make it as easy as possible for them. And we keep that in mind. But yeah, I'd say it's expected that you're living, and you don't have to live in Lethbridge. We don't have that rule like some other agencies. You can live in Taber, Coaldale, Sterling. We have members that live in Calgary. They figure it out, and that's totally fine. But yeah, you're kind of expected to, if you're at recruit training on Monday morning and you're able to make it till Friday, you're good to go.
And what's the length of training? Like, how many weeks?
I think they've got it down to about 21 to 23 weeks.
Okay.
In house right now.
And then once they graduate, are they going into like a field training officer program, or like paired up with a partner? Yeah,
exactly. So they'll be assigned to a patrol team. So we have 4 patrol teams. So they'll be assigned to a patrol team, and then they'll get assigned an FTO, usually a primary and a secondary, and then you're in FTO training for about 5 months.
That's good. It's nice. I always like to hear when it's, like the field training officer on the job training. It's not just like, hey, like you finished training, poof, like off you go, fly little birdie, and like leave them out there on their own. Yeah. Yeah, that was our training. Because like corrections, now they're finally catching up. But like when I first started, it was like backwards. So you went straight out on the floor and you worked for like up to I was on the floor for 2 years before I went to basic training. So like you're working, you have no control tactics, you have no, like, you don't know how to do anything. You're just out there like doing your best, just trying your hardest to like figure it out. And then all of a sudden 2 years later, they're like, okay, now we're going to send you for training. And you're like, well, thank you, because that would have been handy 2 years ago, but okay, great. It's definitely gotten a lot better. Like now guys are in there like maybe like 3 to 6 months before they go to training. But still, it is like out of the like pan and into the fire, because it's just like, okay, like you do your 4-day, 5-day little like, this is how you do a pat down. This is how you do a strip search. This is how you cuff somebody, like bare minimum. And then like, okay, now go do that. Go do that with that inmate over there who does not want to listen to you because he can tell that you have no idea what you're doing and that you're a brand new officer, right?
That's crazy. Yeah, we won't do that to you.
Yeah.
We want people to succeed and feel confident and be safe and make good decisions when they're on the street. So we'll send you with somebody who can help you with those things.
That's good. What was training like for you, Molly? Was there anything like that you really loved during training? Anything you struggled with?
God, mine is such a weird example because of how many of us there were, and we had peace officers in our class. So I think because there were so many people, we had such a range of experience. Like we had people who were in the military previous, we had sheriffs that were in our class. So we did have a lot of good expertise and variety within our class. And I think to our credit, everyone got along pretty well, and like we all helped each other quite a bit. So I always think that was so impressive, because going into it, I really thought it was going to be so much worse and cutthroat, but it wasn't quite like that. And I really, really enjoyed, so the scenarios that we do sometimes at the college, like Allie was talking about, so they start out with kind of something really small, like just a customer service type thing where the person's mad at you, not being overly cooperative, but you kind of talk them through that, use the verbal training that you're given. And then they sort of add and add as you progress through your scenario. So for me, that's some of the best learning, is because you can sit in the classroom and be like, okay, these are my authorities for this. And these, this is what I know. And so then when that's actually presented to you, and the actors that they sent us from the college were really good. So it does feel quite real. And so good, bad, or otherwise, you really learn something from it. Like I bombed a couple of scenarios. I'm not afraid to say that, but those are the ones I learned a lot from, because I'm like, oh shoot, like if I had used this authority, I could have arrested them earlier and they wouldn't have escalated so much, and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really fantastic. And we continue to do that with our cadets.
That is
first like front counter scenario.
Oh yeah, you're terrified because there's 4 people with clipboards watching you, and then someone films you because you go and review it after the fact and do all your reflection on it. So yeah, someone's filming you, 4 people you don't really know that work here with a clipboard staring at you, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Here I go.
Yeah, I'm a fake police officer.
I think it's good though, like you said though, like I mean, I would way rather have those scenarios in a controlled environment and bomb it and be like, whoa, that was like, and walk out and know that you bombed it and be like, that was terrible. Like I know that I totally screwed that up, and then get the opportunity to do the reflection and to do like the, oh my God, yeah, if I would have thought about this, or if I would have said this or not said this, then it would have gone, this way or that way. The fact that you guys can do video review is super cool, because a lot of it is like even, if you're in real life, you have a situation and you know that you bombed the situation, which can happen. I mean, sometimes you're on your game and sometimes you're not on your game. And sometimes you can screw a situation up and it escalates and you think to yourself like, God damn, that's not what I wanted to happen, but it does. So, but then when you leave, you're just doing like that, like video review in your own head of like, okay, well, I said this and they said this and I probably should have said this. But like sometimes it's like your own like skewed version of it. Whereas if you can watch it on video and you can see like from that bird's eye view of like, oh, like I missed that body cue, I missed that facial expression change, I missed that, shift in demeanor, and like I'm going to watch for that next time so I can see if that escalation's coming, or I can see if that mood has changed, or I can see if, maybe I said the wrong thing. Can I change how I worded that so that it doesn't come that way when I say it? So that's awesome. That's such a great tool. So now you guys are out, you're graduating, you're out on the floor, out kind of on the street. What's that looking like for you guys? And I know, Allie, it's kind of hard now because you've taken this recruiting position. So really you're just doing recruiting all day. But what was it like when you guys hit the streets, your first couple shifts, and you're like again, this fresh face little sweetheart that's out there just gonna save the world and make sure that everybody's good. Like, how was that for you guys?
Oh, it was so innocent.
Yeah. Deer in the headlights. Yeah. I think for me, I was lucky because I had that experience working at probation. So I already assumed everyone was lying to me when they talked to me. So I wasn't like, oh, for sure, you're not, like, your boyfriend's not hiding in the closet. Like, I believe you. But yeah, I think just seeing from my FTO how we had the same field training officer, actually. So he has the most calm demeanor and he's very good at talking to people. And there were so few occasions where he actually got angry and had to like escalate with someone in order to, get the compliance that we needed. And I think that was always nice to see, is like, okay, if you can talk to people, you're going to like work through a lot of situations. And that being said, when, there were some pretty sketchy calls that we went to, and just seeing more senior people working as a team, you're kind of like standing there just stunned and amazed.
Yeah, you drink through a fire hose for the first few years of this career. I remember in recruit training, people would be like, you're not going to figure out the streets for probably 3 to 5 years. And I remember being like, that's a really long time. And literally in my 5th year, I went, I was like, I totally get what they're saying now, because I think I got it figured out a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's like the super fun part about this job too, is you have absolutely no idea what you're getting into that day. And every call, whether it's a domestic or or harassment. It's the same law behind it, but every situation is so different that you're not doing the exact same thing, even if it's the same type of call. But yeah, I remember my first shift solo. I was like pooping my pants and called my mom and was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to. And like, thankfully, my FTO, we ended up being beat partners. They put us in the same beat. And I remember going to a couple calls by myself, and I would be at like the front door talking to somebody, and I would turn around and I'd see his car like slowly drive by. Like he was just kind of, and I was like, go away, I got it. Like somebody's always checking on you, and you're never going to anything by yourself and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting few months when you first start out by yourself, and you kind of find your own groove too, which is fun because you do how your FTO kind of teaches you. Like I'm sure we type cat of the same ways because of Paul, but yeah, it's fun kind of just like finding your own groove and how you want to do things on your own and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you guys find like in a smaller town, and like I think Lethbridge is really like kind of a good like in between. It's not as big as Edmonton or Calgary, but it's not as small as like a small town, say like Camrose or something like that, right? Do you find that you have your frequent flyers, like you're like, oh, it's so and so again. We'll head there. We can, like we can deal with that. And how does that kind of affect like living in that same town when, like, because in Edmonton, like, I mean, yes, I still run into cons all the time, like depending on, getting gas or going to the store and stuff like that. But usually it's like Edmonton's big enough that it's not happening like on the daily. It's like, once a month you're seeing somebody. But I would assume in a smaller town that happens a lot more frequently. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, funny story actually. I don't go to the mall in Lethbridge anymore because you just constantly run into people. And I actually went into a store a couple weeks ago to buy some clothing, and as I have like the clothes, I like put it on the counter and look up, and it's somebody that was a frequent flyer, probably is still a little bit of a frequent flyer, and we immediately recognized each other. And it was just like one of those like, man, I cannot get out of it. Like, so I literally go to Calgary when I need to go shopping. I literally go to Calgary. And I mean, granted, the mall in Lethbridge downtown is kind of our busy foot traffic area. But even like we can go to like Costco and run into people. So you do run into it. It's not like crazy. Like I can go grocery shopping without seeing people. And I live on the other side of the city from where like our downtown core is. So I don't like run into people. I'm not like walking my dog or anything like that. But yeah, being in a smaller city, that definitely happens where if I need to go do a good shopping trip, I'm heading to Calgary for the weekend.
Molly, I want to quickly delve into your role now too. So high risk offender unit. So what exactly are you dealing with kind of when you're working in this unit?
Yeah, so this unit is actually like used to fall under the umbrella of like 2 units. So it used to be mixed in with our property crimes, and it's actually relatively recent within the last 3 years that it's separated into its unit, which I think is a good thing. They're called high risk offenders for a reason. So it's kind of a big umbrella for us. I deal with all the sex offenders in the city. So all their registration, their annual registration, they have to come in and see me, update me on address, name, employment, that kind of thing. Any high risk parole releases in the city, we monitor them. We work really closely with parole and probation. They always update us on how their people are doing. Are they missing appointments? We're doing the curfew checks for them. And then our sergeant is awesome because he doesn't put us in a box, because ultimately people can be coded for our unit for a lot of different reasons. And so if we have someone who's just a prolific problem and we choose them as a target, he's very supportive of that so that we can help out the patrol teams. Like our calls for service here, the volume is super high. I only came off the street in January. So patrols just don't have that time to go and follow people around and like check their conditions. And so although it's a prolific problem for them, they don't have the bodies to do targeted management on them. So that's kind of what I do day to day with my partner.
That's awesome. Because when you see that title high risk offender, it's like you can either go one of 2 ways, right? Either like high risk as in this person has a high risk of recidivism, they're going to continually be an offender that we're going to be dealing with, or high risk to the population. So are they a gang member? Are they a sexual offender? Are they, right? So it's kind of nice that you've kind of like envelop them underneath that umbrella, and you have dedicated officers that can really kind of follow up on that. I feel like in big cities like Edmonton and Calgary, we just don't have the resources to do that. Probation doesn't have the resources to be checking up on these guys. Our attendance centers, which are dealing with our provincial correctional, like offenders, don't have the resources to be doing curfew checks. Like there's too many, and there's not enough bodies to make sure that stuff is being adhered to. And especially when we're talking about sexual offenders. And that to me is, like that's one of the scariest ones out there, because they usually reoffend fairly frequently, and their offenses are more severe each time they reoffend. And so it's like, you want to make sure that we have people that can like basically keep tabs on them. But if there's not any officers that can do that, then that you just have like sex offenders like wandering freely. And that just always gives me like, I remember having to release some of them and being like, this makes me sick to my stomach, knowing that I'm signing off on this like discharge form and I'm putting this person back into the community that I like basically 100% know is going to reoffend. So I'm just literally signing to like let somebody be sexually assaulted, and hopefully it's not a child, right? Like, so I'm really, that makes me happy that there is kind of that dedicated officer presence for those types of offenders. Okay, I know we've like taken a long time and you guys are very busy because you do have a high volume of calls, but I want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions. I love these. They make me laugh. They're usually some really great answers. So I'm going to start off with my favorite one because it's always different for everybody, and I love hearing these answers. What is your favorite food or snack to eat while you are on shift?
My answer's different now. My answer when I was in patrols.
I totally did. I was like, when I was on night shift, what was I snacking on?
Yes.
Whatever I could eat and drive at the same time. Yeah. So I made a lot of like muffins and stuff that I could just crush on the way to calls. Yeah. Now that I have an office where I can like sit down and actually eat my food with some civilized company, I really enjoy like, this is so lame, but like my morning, I have my oatmeal, I like warm it up and I have time. I think it's just, having a desk and some sanity. I'm like, that's kind of nice. But the night shift treat would be a different thing. I think for me, just like Reese cups. I love a Reese cup.
I love a Reese cup.
Yeah.
My last night shift was always my treat shift, and like 3 a.m. if it was dead, I'd go crush a McCrispy.
Nice.
Yeah. Of course. Hey, we did that once. We had a spooning McDonald's date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, so when I did an episode with Mina Rangi from Edmonton Police Recruiting Unit, she was saying too, she had a specific partner, and they were supposed to only go on the Sunday of their night shift. So it would come up like every 3 weeks. It would be their like Sunday night treat, is they would go and they would get like a McFlurry or like a Sunday or something, right? And then she's like, and then it gradually became every Sunday, and then it became every night shift. And she's like, I was able to say like, no, I'm only going to do it on like our one time. She's like, but my partner had no willpower, and he was like, you want to get a Sunday?
Yeah, it's a good thing I didn't have a partner like that, because every time I'd be like, yes.
Well, our field training officer, so like I generally prep my food and eat pretty healthy. And so he found out that Reese cups were kind of my thing. And so he would go and like, oh, can you stop at the store? Yeah, no worries. And he'd get Reese cups, not because he liked them, because he wanted to eat them in front of me to torment me and see what my willpower was like.
It was Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Just chug Diet Cokes.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome. It's true though. You need something that you can eat with one hand, that you can like ram in your mouth if you have to, because like savoring a meal as a first responder, like unless you have a desk job, like that does not happen. Like just when you think like you're like, okay, nothing has happened, I have like 5 minutes to sit nicely with my warmed up whatever a meal that I tried to prep, and I'm gonna put the first forkful in my mouth, and then the tones are gonna drop, and I'm gonna be like, damn it, I can't even reply on my radio because my mouth is fired.
Like flipping.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, my second one would be, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's looking to get into the career? And we've talked about, like prep early for your fitness and, make sure that you're prepared coming into this recruiting process. But if there was something else that you could add as a piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say to just like own your personality, own who you are. I think a lot of people have a misconception that we're looking for like RoboCops and stoicism and being serious. And like, I couldn't be farther from that personality type. And so I was very relieved when they hired me, and I'm like, jokes, jokes, jokes. Like, obviously something dangerous is happening. It's time to be serious, and I can turn that on. But like, just be who you are, and yes, be professional, all those things. But we're not looking for robots. So just, don't stifle your personality to work here.
Yeah,
I like that.
From a recruiter perspective, I'd say if you are looking at applying, like really do your research on the agencies. We are all so different. At the end of the day, the job's the same. Policing is policing. But Calgary, Edmonton, us, Tabor, the Mounties, like we all do things a little bit differently. And we all have different styles of policing and we all have different opportunities. So I always tell people, like, really do your research. If you can get on some ride-alongs, get on some ride-alongs. Really figure out. I know it's hard when you're an applicant or even before you apply to like know what unit you want to go into, because like I thought I wanted to be a high school resource officer and you couldn't pay me to be a high school resource officer anymore. Thank God there's people that want to do it. It's just not my thing. But like we don't have horses and helicopters and dive teams like Calgary does, right? So if that's something that you're like dead set on doing and that's your end goal, then Lethbridge might not be the agency for you, and that's totally fine. But a lot of people I've interviewed people that are like, I'm really interested in your dive team. And I'm like, we don't have a dive team, my guy.
If you're diving, it's gone horribly wrong.
Yes. So yeah, aside from preparing for your interview, just, do your research on the agency and really figure out what agency is going to be a good fit for you. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to raise a family? How do you see your career going and all that kind of stuff? Because we are all different, and that can make a huge difference.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what we're seeing again. Blue Line is they just see the uniform and they see the job and they're like, I want that job. And it's like again, and I will say for corrections, speaking from corrections, that I want to be a correctional officer. I'm like, okay, do you want to do provincial or federal? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you want to do this job, you don't know the difference? You don't know that there's like two, like one's not even like different employers. One's the government of Canada, one's the government of Alberta. Like if you don't know this, like probably should do some research. So yeah, I do like that. Okay, the last one I'm going to ask you guys, I think we'll probably have some fun ones with this, but what's the best part of your job and what's one of the memories that kind of lead into the best part of your job?
Oh goodness, let me reel back into my yeah. This job is really fun. Honestly, like it's I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This job is not fun sometimes. And if you don't know that getting into it, then you'll figure it out. But it's one of the cool things about Lethbridge is we are such a small agency and your teams are 12, 15 people. And you work very intimately with those people and they really become family. And like some of my best friends are in this building. And working with them and going to some of the crazy calls that you go to where you literally walk out of the house and you're like, what just happened? And like you just go and like type up the call and just like laugh about it. And like you have to have that in this job or you're not going to survive. And I'd say that's been one of the coolest parts for me is just building those relationships with coworkers and making light out of some pretty dark situations, but having a blast along the way and trying to have a good time. And we get to do some pretty fun stuff, like when you're driving 200 clicks down the highway and you get to do some pretty fun stuff in this job, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah,
I think it's true too, like you're saying, like that, shift becomes your family. Like that is who you are super tight with. And it's only you and those people that have witnessed or been part of those calls. And so like, yeah, when you leave and you're just like, and you can't stop laughing because of like something that happened. And then you can like look at each other, like even like 3 weeks down the like road and just say one word and you're both like dying laughing. And everyone else around you is like, I have no idea what these girls are laughing about. And you're like, but it was so funny. And if you'd have been there, it was so funny. So you know that kind of sensation and that feeling of like, yeah, nobody else knows any of that, what just went down except for us. And that will be something that's now cemented in my head for the rest of my life. So yeah. Molly, what about you?
I think I just echo everything that Allie had said is like you become so close to these people and like you have to have such massive trust for those high risk calls where you're literally looking out for each other's lives. But then I think then you have those really funny moments where like you are going to screw things up. And sometimes it's hilarious. And like the stuff that we mess up is not like average, oh, I didn't screw up an email. Like I will tell my example. The very first time I went to a sudden death, I was there still with the training officer. And so this lady had passed away and her family was there and she was still seated upright in a chair. And so my sergeant introduced himself to the family. And I was saying, hello, I'm Constable Murray, shaking everyone's hands. And I got to the last person in the room who was the dead lady. And I stuck my hand out to shake her hand. Obviously, she didn't shake my hand back. And my sergeant's like, okay, so he's still professional at this time. He's like, hey guys, we'll just get you to wait outside so we can do our thing. And like, we'll come and grab you and let you know, like, you know, when we're all done. And so the second the door closes, he turns around and it's like, excuse me, did you just try to shake the dead lady's hand? And like, he still razzes me about that. And I'm like, yep, I just didn't quite know what to do with myself in this room, but there we go.
It's so awesome because I could just totally see.
Like, that's a weird day at the office. You know, it is what it is.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh. But meanwhile, the family's like looking at you like, what?
Yeah, they're probably like, at least that one guy knows what he's doing.
Oh, man.
That is fantastic. And it's true. Like, I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you go to work every day. You never know what you're going to be dealing with. So yeah, that's good. Well, I got to say, ladies, this has been a slice. You guys you're funny. You're fun. I love your energy. I think, yeah, you guys are killing it down there in Lethbridge. Like I said, I'm going to make a road trip around Alberta. I'm going to go visit all my podcast friends that I've met over this last year. And I'll make sure I stop into Lethbridge and see you guys because it would be a time. Yeah. Okay, so any last words for our listeners before we sign off?
No, if you guys happen to be interested in Lethbridge, as I'm sure you've gathered, we're actively hiring. And if you guys have any questions whatsoever, you can throw us an email just at recruiting@lethbridgepolice.ca. We're super active on Instagram, just Lethbridge Police Recruiting. We post absolutely everything on there. If you guys have any interest in signing up for any of the stuff, or you can send us a message on there and then we can reach out and connect with you as well. So good luck in your policing endeavors, everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, Lethbridge is an amazing place to work and live. We have a lot of the specialties that people are looking for. Don't like be mistaken that we're a small town police service. We have very prolific serious offenders that come here, and we have canine, we have TAC, we have all that stuff. And the difference is, you know, the people on the teams and you know them by name. So when you do have an interest, you can like sit down and have a coffee with someone. And that's, you know, how I found myself in this unit. So yeah, just give it some consideration for sure.
Also affordable housing.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I mean, it's true. It's totally true. Like literally just a couple weeks ago, I interviewed a friend of mine who used to be in Alberta Corrections with me. She's now down in Oliver at the jail down there. And they literally have half the jail shut down because nobody can afford to live in Oliver and work at the jail. And she's like they didn't really think about that when they built this beautiful jail down here. And, you know, they can't staff it. There's nobody that can afford to live in the town, and there's no towns anywhere around that's like cheap enough to live, right? So yeah, I mean, it really is a great selling point. And to what you said, Allie, we'll be throwing all you guys' information in the show notes. So if you are interested in a career in Lethbridge and the police service is calling your name, all that information will be in the show notes. So just check it out there and definitely check out their Instagram. I'm pretty sure I follow you guys, but if not, I will be following you now because I love to follow and see what you guys are up to. But on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, you know, keep doing what you're doing and keep killing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.